Do you like the art of mystery? Are you into illusions? Then you definitely want to check out the latest show at Liberty Magic. It's called Meant to Be, and it's the brainchild of Hennick. He's a musician and entertainer who's performed all over the world, and he's got this really cool specialty. He offers personalized mysteries. The show runs through September 1st, and if you want to make sure you are up close to the action, definitely consider upgrading to the VIP experience. You get reserved seats in the front 2 rows, and there's a special meet and greet after the show. Get your tickets at trustarts.org/magic before they disappear. Today on CityCast Pittsburgh, if you see any low-flying planes near your neighborhood, maybe look out for the little treats they're dropping, because if you are listening to this, they are not for you. A new religious space is hosting limited-time tours just north of the city, and we hear it is very exclusive and very fancy. Plus, we're talking about why Pittsburgh's got a regatta in 2025. It's Tuesday, August 20th. I'm Megan Harris, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about. I'm with CityCast producer Sophia Lo for a little midweek news roundup. Sophia, I apologize in advance. My recording situation is not up to my usual standard today.
That's okay. Happy to be here anyway. How's it going, Megan?
Good. Still catching up from the weekend. I feel like there was so much presidential buzz around town, around the state. So I guess in case you missed it, just a quick overview. The Democratic National Convention is happening now. It's in Chicago. But Harris and Walz started their bus tour here in Western Pennsylvania.
Yeah, they dropped by Beaver County, Aliquippa.
Hitting all the sites. Walz apparently popped by a football practice. The quips are fantastic. I don't think he could have chosen anything better. Guess he's going back to those roots as a high school football coach.
Yeah, and while they were in the region, they also got burnt almond tort. I still haven't had that, actually, so I got to catch up. And then they also went to Sheetz, so full experience.
I feel like Prantles are everywhere now, Sophia. You have no excuses. And the Trump campaign was also in the state. Wilkes-Barre over the weekend, and then York yesterday. Mm-hmm. Wilkes-Barre is in Luzerne County, which has flipped back and forth between Democrats and Republicans, so probably smart to spend some time there.
Right, but the clip I saw going around was there was one point in the rally where Trump maybe slipped up and addressed everyone as North Carolina and not Pennsylvania. Yikes, maybe? Definitely
Kamala HQ jumped on it, but I don't know. Now that I've dug into it a little bit more, he did welcome Pennsylvania at the very, very beginning, and then he, I guess, referenced a group of people from North Carolina earlier in his speech, many minutes before.
I did see that.
Yeah, so I've seen some people saying that he was referring to them, perhaps. We had one Hey Pittsburgh reader in our inbox about it. He shared a Newsweek article that basically says Newsweek could not independently confirm what the president was saying and who he was referring to, but that it is possible it may have been North Carolina. So sort of debunking, but not full-throated.
Yeah, and I'll admit I did not watch the full rally. I know that, people had traveled for this, but the one clip I saw, which was not in its full context, did sort of just seem North Carolina broadly. I guess we'll never know.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, the political teams are just jumping on everything so fast. It's hard to keep up.
Yeah, well, we will keep you all updated with any other news to know about presidential candidates, but enough election talk for now. Megan, what else is happening around the city?
Well, one that I am personally very invested in, it would normally just be kind of wrapping up this time of year. The Three Rivers Regatta could be returning.
I have heard people talk about this, but why should I care? It's a boat event. I do not have a boat.
You do not have a boat, but you could watch boats. You could be interested in boats. Also, that's not entirely what the regatta is, or at least it's not all that the Pittsburgh Regatta ever was.
Okay, my understanding were regattas were boat races, boat events. Honestly, not really sure what a regatta is. So tell me what it means in this Pittsburgh context then. All I know is that it happened at the point, water, boats, but it hasn't happened in years.
Yeah, well, I would encourage you to reframe it as a water party, a celebration of water, perhaps. Our last one here in Pittsburgh was in 2018, so well before your time here in Pittsburgh, Sophia. But it's become a bit of a boondoggle since then, a mess, if you will. So first, some history. It started in 1978, and it had air, land, and sea or river events. So it was sort of a small boat race to start that people would be able to watch, sitting on the river. But by the 80s, they were doing these fancy F1 powerboat races. If you look at videos of them as recently as a few years ago, they look like an F1 car, like this big, fancy, expensive car, but in the water, and they go very, very fast.
Okay. That was quick. I like how it started, and then a couple years later, they're like, let's go, powerboat. We're going bigger.
If we're going to have a race, let's make it go fast. So the last one in 2018, they had freestyle jet ski races. So they do jumps and rolls.
Okay.
Then they have something called an anything that floats race that I think you would love. So it was sponsored by Alcosan, which I think is just hilarious. That's the company that does all of our sewage. So it's exactly what it sounds like. And every year, at least a couple of them would in fact not float very well. But if you won the race or you were judged the greenest, most sustainable stuff that made your anything that floated, or you were the most creative, you got a cash prize for the charity of your choice.
That's nice. Does a human have to be in them, I assume?
They must be
race?
Piloted, as I understand it, yes. They can be very big and small. So, for example, I just sent you a picture of one, but it's basically a lady sitting on an inner tube attempting to free swim. And I love it. That's the small scale. There were much bigger ones. And then perhaps my favorite event, I don't know if I'm saying this right, the Flugtag competition, sponsored by Red Bull. So it was a lot like that anything that floats thing, but they had to fly. So people would launch their aircraft off the side of this huge ramp on the North Shore and see how far it would coast before it crash landed in the river.
So this one's not piloted, right? This one is just
No, this was piloted. Yes, people were on it. Sometimes multiple people. Yes.
Why?
Why not? As of 2017.
Because you fall into the river, Megan. I don't want to be in our rivers.
Well, you first of all have to be comfortable with landing in the river, but you also have to be comfortable with crashing into whatever your aircraft is. There's a lot of consideration. So as of 2017, the record was 258 feet of flight, which is pretty good, I think. But it also had some scarier moments over the years. Here's a clip from KDKA from this guy who made his aircraft out of a huge skateboard. So gonna crash land almost immediately. And it's made out of plywood. So it's really heavy. He said he was planning to jump totally clear of it, but he missed.
Oh, no.
The TV reporter also got hurt pretty badly one year. Anyway, the Red Bull of it all, the Flugtag, it was only on occasional years because I guess that pops up all over the nation. But Pittsburgh was just a frequent stop of theirs. And then there were real air events. So they had a skydiver show.
Nice.
And then it's Pittsburgh. So, of course, a huge fireworks show. And then on land, they did sand sculptures on the river, and those were stunning. They were kind of at the Pennsylvania Farm Show when I was going on and on about the butter sculptures. It was like that. Every bit as intricate and detailed, but in sand. And then they had a catch the frisbee dog stunt show, which I thought
I do like animals.
No, you
okay.
And then there were craft shows, kids areas, live music. Every once in a while, they'd get a really, really big act. Sometimes it would stay local. But it was a lot of fun. It was 3 days. It was all free. So it was really cool.
Oh, okay. Free always starts to sell me more. Well, it sounds like there's a lot of different types of things, something for everyone. So then why did it end? I mean, it sounds like it was a popular event if it went on for decades.
Yeah, the city, I think when it ended, they said they were drawing around 500,000 people, which as we've talked about on the show as recently as a few days ago, tourism and getting people in for like big events like this has become like a really big priority.
Exactly.
But yes, the boondoggle of it all. I will try to make this quick. So everything was set for 2019, but a few days before it would have kicked off in August, early August, the promoter Lionheart Event Group canceled it all. So it was kind of a big surprise.
Right.
And initially, we as reporters had heard that it was because they didn't get the necessary permits or insurance. So then Lionheart was investigated for misrepresentation of the sponsorships, of the vendor packages, for failing to pay police who were there doing security, and then also for criminal wrongdoing.
Oh?
Yeah, so Lionheart also apparently owed money to the state, to the Allegheny County Sheriff's Office. It was all just such a big mess. And then, of course,
like it.
The pandemic happened. So 2020, 2021, like that was just not even on the table. But even if it hadn't happened, like Lionheart was still in bankruptcy court for parts of those years. So anyway, there was hope that it might come back this year for 2024. City Paper ran a story earlier this summer because someone spotted a pizzeria website here in Pittsburgh claiming to be involved with coordinating a 2024 Three Rivers Regatta.
Okay. Everything you've described does not scream pizza to me.
Right? At the time, there was a website saying that it might return in 2024, but credit to City Paper, they called around all these government agencies to check, like, has anyone asked for a permit? Like, we can't get a hold of this pizzeria. And all of, like, the county, the state, they're like, no one has requested this. I don't think this is a thing. But update, important. After that first story ran, the chairman of the Regatta Board of Directors got in touch with the writer and said, no, we do not know what's up with this pizza place, but we are working to bring it back.
This is such a saga, and I love that it ended with a pizza place.
So, I don't know if that's the end, actually. I would say that's still coming.
Okay.
So apparently, John Bonassi, this chair of the board, the Regatta board, he says that they would have done it for 2024, but they couldn't get their ducks in a row fast enough to pull it off, mostly because they need a new title sponsor. So like the company, the local company EQT, they had the naming rights before. Bonassi says they need between like $550,000 to $750,000 to cover the total cost of all of these events, to keep it a 3-day show. And like I said, maybe most importantly, to keep it free for everyone who comes.
Okay. I was like, that's a lot of money at first, but if that means it's free for me, sounds like they should get on it.
Right.
So then is this group like working on getting someone to put their name on this whole thing?
City Paper says so. So Bonassi told them that they are, quote, planning to retain a firm, end quote, to assist with identifying and securing sponsors by April 2025 at the latest. And he says the food is already locked up. I like that was like slipped right in there. Like, we're Pittsburgh. We got to make sure you know that the food is going to be good. I guess it's the same people who had been doing it the last 40 years that we've had a
that's
regatta.
really nice.
I know, keeping it local. There's already a website declaring boldly that we are back. It's got a really cute, nostalgic video. Actually, I will leave you with that. Listen to this clip.
You have to flow with the river. There is no other way, because you can change direction in the course of the river. You can go to the left or to the right, as the ship can use a rudder and still go along with the current. He acquires, behind everything that he does, the power of the river.
Coming here, the thing that strikes me first is just the mass of humanity that come out to watch this race. There's great, rich race traditioning here. The area around here where people congregate, it's a perfect setting. It's just a great time to be in Pittsburgh.
Explore the evolving landscape of the Pittsburgh steel industry with Steel Stories. It's a podcast from U.S. Steel, hosted by technology and business journalist David Kirkpatrick. The series dives into important conversations with industry leaders who are shaping the future of steel. In the latest episode, David talks with U.S. Steel's president and CEO, David Burritt, and Nippon Steel's vice chairman, Takehiro Mori, about the recent alliance between U.S. Steel and Nippon Steel, and what this collaboration might mean for the industry and for the Pittsburgh communities that it touches. Listen as Seal Stories explores topics like job protections, facility safety, and efforts to reduce carbon emissions, issues we know resonate with a lot of you in and around the Steel City. If you're interested in understanding the impact of this partnership, tune into Steel Stories. It's available wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
This episode is brought to you by Honda. When you test drive the all-new Prologue EV, there's a lot that can impress you about it. There's the class-leading passenger space, the clean, thoughtful design, and the intuitive technology. But out of everything, what you'll really love most is that it's a Honda. Visit honda.com/EV to see offers.
So, Sophia, you already know this, of course. I am super nebby.
We all are. That's okay.
Professionally nebby on this team. But I'm really excited to take a peek inside this new spot here in Western Pennsylvania, a temple that's now complete up in Cranberry. It's the new Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints temple, like their official big space.
Not to cast doubt on you again, but why are you excited for a Mormon temple?
I like exclusivity, but also like you have to see the photos. There's an article up on the Trib's website right now. We'll link to it in the show notes, but it's got a video and pictures. This thing is just huge. Lots of white granite, big windows, these really fancy furnishings and artwork. And I guess the designers also wanted to honor its new home, so they incorporated the mountain laurel into like all kinds of stuff.
Pennsylvania state flower.
Exactly. So I guess they're in the carpet, in the stained glass. They inspired the color palette, which is like, seems to be like greens and lavenders. I don't know. I'm just looking forward to going into this limited time open house because once it is dedicated on September 15th, only Mormons who have received their LDS endowments are allowed to go in at all.
Oh, okay. I'm starting to see why you're interested in peeking around. I did not realize that not all Mormons are able to go into the temples.
Not all Mormons, and definitely no one who's not Mormon at all. So this is all new information for me too, but I am learning humbly. So temples are where ceremonies like weddings and baptisms happen. So if you are getting married there, for example, and your family is not Mormon, they can't go inside and watch you get married. The temple has this room, I guess, just inside the entrance, like a nice sized reception area. So your people wait there. And when you are done with your ceremony, you come out and can greet them and, you know, have like a nice time together. Maybe your reception is somewhere else and you can celebrate all together. But yeah, it's very specific who is allowed to be in and take part and who is not.
Interesting. I figure like, you know, sacred space, but are there like screens to watch or like a recording so people can like see it later? Any kind of thing like that?
Not that I know of, because that was my first question too, but I'm excited to check it out for myself. Someone I know actually has been by already. They got like a special guided tour because they help with genealogy over there. The LDS folks are very into genealogy, but they just raved about it. And in case it worries you, they also said that there was no like proselytizing, like that wasn't part of it. Like she said that, you know, if you asked them directly about joining the church, that they would probably oblige, but it wasn't.
I'm sure.
It wasn't like a piece of what they experienced. It was just like a chance for folks in the area to like come see what's inside this massive all white building that they've been building there for ages.
So I guess this temple isn't for regular Sunday worship or services then, especially if people can't go in it, like special occasions like weddings only?
Yeah, so I guess weekly services are in chapels or meeting houses. There is one actually on that same spot. So it's just in front of the new temple off of Rochester Road there in Cranberry. And we were reading about it, and actually this is just the second temple in the state of Pennsylvania. So there's one in Philly, and now there's a third temple that's about to be built in Harrisburg.
Oh, well, traveling to Philly is kind of a hike, so I'm glad there are people locally here that are going to be really excited for this too.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine if you wanted an official ceremony in your faith, like you had to go to one of these other big places like DC or Philly or somewhere else? Like Pittsburgh Magazine reported that this temple is going to serve 29,000 people across 80 church congregations. I imagine that's a big region, like a big, swath of geography that they're counting there.
So if we're getting this big temple right outside of Pittsburgh, does that mean the Mormon community here is growing?
Not necessarily. From what we could find, executive producer Mallory Falk shared an article about the new temple in Religion News Service. And it said that building new temples is more about like making sure the sacred space is within reach of existing congregations. So not always a sign of growth exactly. Wikipedia, I noticed for what it's worth, says that there are more than 300 of these temples in the world. Grain of salt because it's wiki. But we also posed this to the CityCast Salt Lake team, and they told us that the church, the LDS Church, also built one in Rome.
What?
Where Catholicism is king. So growth isn't exactly a requirement so much as like a concentration of existing membership. Back in 2014, the LDS Church set up a third stake here, which I guess to continue the Catholic comparison is kind of like a diocese to serve the folks already here. But a Trib article from back then, again, this is old, said that Western Pennsylvania, at least at the time, had one of the lowest populations of Mormons per capita in the whole U.S.
Oh, okay. Honestly, I had not really thought about that.
Credit to Mallory, because she found almost all of that, and we are all learning together today.
Definitely. So for people who are not part of the LDS Church, who also maybe want to get a look inside the temple before it's dedicated, anything else they should know?
Just that it's like an open house, so it's not like a guided tour dedicated, anything like that. But there's going to be lots of knowledgeable docents around, so you can ask questions. It's open through August 31st, closed on Sundays, but you don't need like a ticket or anything. It's free. You can drop in when you want, and they're around from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Well, I'm not sure if I'll make it up to the temple, but I will be waiting for you to report back on what your experience is like.
I can't wait.
Okay, one last news item to wrap up. Something I am thrilled to talk about, Allegheny County's rabies vaccination program for raccoons. So this started earlier this month, and it runs until the 31st. Megan, have you heard anything about this yet?
No, and I purposefully did not click on any of the stories I've seen because I knew you were so excited and you wanted to tell me about it.
Yes, I love wacky animal stories. So as we know, rabies. Bad for animals and humans. But the county's health department says they've identified fewer and fewer raccoons with rabies over the past 20 years. So that's thanks to the rabies vaccine. And WESA reported that this year, over 300,000 vaccines are going to be dropped all over the county.
I mean, is this like a trap and vax thing or, like they do trap and neuter, that kind of thing?
No trapping any raccoons. This is where I think this whole situation gets kind of silly. So the county's working with the USDA to just leave a bunch of bait around the Pittsburgh area. And those baits have the vaccine. WESA explained there's different kinds of bait. So one might look like a, quote, green ravioli or a, quote, ketchup packet covered in fish meal or a sweet-smelling waxy substance.
I mean, that does not sound like a great appetizer to me personally, but maybe it's a raccoon's favorite food.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea is just to get raccoons excited about the smell. But my first question was, what does this bait look like? Is it like a literal ketchup packet? Because I was imagining a raccoon gripping like Heinz ketchup.
I mean, honestly, that's what I look like when I'm eating thing like with Heinz ketchup is like just like my little paws around it. Like nobody come near.
You're trying to rip it open with your teeth if your hands are sticky.
I mean, sometimes you have to.
I know. So I found some other articles, including an old WSA one from 2021 that shows what these baits looks like. Much less whimsical than I imagined. They can be like brown blocks of fish meal, and the packets just kind of white and boring, at least the ones I found. Not, a classic bright red Heinz ketchup that you or I would find in a restaurant.
I mean, honestly, this feels like a sponsorship opportunity. We're talking about it for the regatta. Like, Heinz could jump in there and sponsor this rabies program. I'm sure, like, maybe it's a tax write-off. They should look into it.
Maybe, but now that I know that they're not real ketchup packets, I wonder if there's, like, not ketchup in there. I don't know. Can you, like, test? Does this vaccine work if a raccoon also eats a packet of ketchup?
I don't know. These are important questions, Sophia.
But, on to the stuff that maybe people actually do need to know. The county's website says that some low-flying helicopters and airplanes are going to be used to get these vaccines around. So, if you see a helicopter very low to the ground, that's probably what they'd be doing. I would assume. I'd be very surprised if I saw a helicopter. So, stuff for people to know.
Oh, not to be bleak, but I feel like here in Pittsburgh, we get very twitchy about low-flying airplanes and helicopters. Like, of course, there's a lot of air traffic that comes through here, but like, I don't know. Like the Flight 93 thing is still like very close to a lot of people's memories, especially like the older folks here in town. I don't know. That just makes me twitchy. I'm glad we're letting people know, but a low flying plane always makes me nervous.
Since I live near a couple hospitals too, usually when I see helicopters around, it means medical emergency.
But also not a good thing. Like it just conjures negativity.
Exactly. So I'm glad, the county was trying to get the word out.
Definitely. I guess, for all of our friends and neighbors with pets, with animals, with small children that pick up everything, is it safe for the vaccine to be near and out? Like, should we be watching for this stuff?
It is supposed to be safe for cats and dogs, but, they shouldn't be munching on the bait. So if your pet does stumble across some and starts to get sick, reach out to a vet for sure. If you or, your child touches the bait, wash your hands. So if you do find it, it's okay to just leave it alone. Ideally, move it under some cover so, little kids or pets aren't getting to it. The county's website said if the bait is leaking, put on a pair of gloves or use a plastic bag to move it. I was unclear, though, if because the vaccine's liquid, so if it's leaking, it's the vaccine. I was a little unclear, though, if you're supposed to throw it out if it's leaking or put it under cover. Trying to find that answer. I'm sorry, I do not have that for you. Too focused on ketchup.
I mean, for now, it sounds like you just use your shoe and give it a little shove under the park bench.
Yeah, it sounds like they did try to, put the vaccine in places where people couldn't reach it. But, I'm sure things get moved around a little bit or maybe.
But it's being dropped out of an airplane. How can they decide where it's going?
A place maybe not near houses?
Where is that in the city of Pittsburgh? I mean, I know this is all over the county, but still.
Well, I'll end on this note. If you get a rash across
if you touch it too much.
Also contact a medical professional.
But at least you won't get rabies? ?
At least you won't get rabies. Smiley face.
That's all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. If you like what you're hearing, please write us a nice review. You can do it in Apple Podcasts, in Google Play. We really appreciate anything nice you have to say, and it helps people find us. We might even read a nice review on the show. We'll be back tomorrow with more news from around the city. Talk to you soon.
I would submit one single pool noodle.